I would like to call this meeting of the TRPA Regional Planning Committee to order. The date is Wednesday, July 23rd at 2025, July 23rd, 2025. It is 3 p.m. The first item on the agenda is a roll call to determine quorum.
Ms. Aldine?
Here.
Ms. Gustafson?
Here.
Mr. Hennigan?
Here.
Mr. Keycapper? Ms. Loomer? I know she's here. And then Mr. Settlemeyer. Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Great, thank you. I'll now go over the remote and in-person meeting rules for the day. Remote committee members, please raise your hand to speak and mute your microphone unless speaking to help cut down on background noise. I'd like to ask that all remote members turn on your camera if you're able. Remote committee members may not use the chat box to make any comments or to have sidebar conversations. If you are viewing the webinar on a personal computer in the room, please ensure that your microphone and speakers are turned off to prevent audio feedback into the room. Members of the public who have joined us in person, please raise your hand at the appropriate time for public comment, and you will be called to the front to speak. Committee members who are in person, please raise your hand if you wish to comment, state your name, and speak clearly into the microphone in front of you. If you are viewing the webinar on a personal computer, please ensure that your microphone and speakers are turned off to prevent audio feedback into the room. All right, first item on our agenda is the public comment period for items on the agenda. Any member of the public wishing to address the committee on any agenda item may do so at this time. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. This comment period is reserved for items on the agenda. Comments on other matters may be redirected to the public interest comment period before adjournment of the meeting. All right, if any members of the public wish to address the committee, please raise your hand either now or in person by clicking on the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen or by dialing *9 on your phone, and you will be called on and unmuted by a TRPA staff member. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak at this time? I see no one. All right. Is there anyone online?
Mr. Chair, we have one hand raised online.
Okay.
Gavin Feiger, please unmute to make your comment.
Thank you and good afternoon, Regional Planning Commission. Gavin Feiger, League to Save Lake Tahoe. As you may know or remember, the League was one of the key stakeholders during the development and approval of the shoreline plan and accompanying environmental review. Our support was necessary to finalize and approve the plan. Ms. Reagan mentioned the process in her report at the end of the governing board meeting just a little bit ago, and you can imagine that every word was discussed in great detail. And the result was that every policy goal, the related code changes, assumptions that went into the plan, it's all tied together and they rely on each other to make sure that those assumptions are realized. So that's all to say that making changes to any shore zone rules is probably not going to be super easy or straightforward, but we're definitely game to look at this with y'all. With the list of the potential shore zone issues that staff has identified for future consideration or during this year or so, it's really important that this first one is done in a way that maintains trust and looks in detail at all potential environmental impacts. So for this non-conforming piers one, we mentioned most of these to Tiffany when Jesse chatted with her, as was noted in the staff report. And I can send a follow-up note too, but there's like 5 things that we really want to see analyzed or considered. Number 1 is what precedent are we setting? Number 2 is how big of an environmental impact are the rock crib piers? As mentioned, scenic quality, littoral drift, water quality, AIS, biological resources. Like, is this really a problem that needs to be solved, an environmental ecological problem, or is the lawsuit the problem that needs to be solved? The third one is considering whether assumptions made in the environmental review would be undermined if expansions of non-conforming piers were allowed without bringing all the non-conforming elements into conformance. So just basically, is the EIR going to need an amendment or addendum or something like that? And along those lines, the fourth one is separating impacts into buckets. So, and then considering whether it's appropriate to trade impacts between buckets. Like, do you trade scenic impact for improving littoral drift. And that's something that needs to be really considered in detail. And that all gets to the last one, which is which thresholds will be improved and how much, like how and how much. So I know that's a lot. Happy to send a follow-up note. Yeah, looking forward to seeing how this one goes, and it'll be a good bellwether for the other changes that are being contemplated. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Gavin. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, there are no other hands raised online to comment.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll close public comment on this public comment and move on. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes?
Mr. Chair, this is John Hester. There are no changes.
All right, then I'll deem the agenda approved as posted. And the next item, agenda item number 3, is approval of minutes. We have a draft set of minutes from the May 28th, 2025 meeting on page 51 of your packet. Does any member of the committee wish to make a change? Nope.
Nope.
Wow, awesome. All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So moved.
All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone? Great. Anyone opposed? Nope. All right. Then I guess the motion passes. So that brings us to agenda item number 4, presentation, discussion, and possible direction for expansion of non-conforming peer standards, regulations, and procedures. Information on this item can be found on page 509. Tiffany is going to present on this item. Tiffany Good. So I'll turn it over to her. Thank you.
Great, thank you, and thanks. My name is Tiffany Good. I am a principal planner and program manager with the Permitting and Compliance Department. Always a crowd favorite, shoreline issues, as we're talking about it some more today. So today we really want to seek input from the committee and the public on non-conforming piers. It's very kind of niche subject of the shoreline plan. A non-conforming pier is a legally existing pier or a grandfathered pier that is inconsistent with the current design standards that we have in our code today. And we're talking to you all about this issue because, this issue bubbled up because TRPA denied a project for that proposed an expansion to a non-conforming pier. So we're not here today to discuss the merits of the appeal or to rehash the appeal, but the circumstances of the appeal will help to set the context for our discussion. And again, while staff isn't making a recommendation to the committee today, we are seeking possible direction from the committee on next steps. In order to facilitate the discussion, I'm going to give you all some brief background on the shoreline plan, not to reiterate too much what Brandy McMahon and Executive Director Reagan have already spoken to today, but we'll touch on that a little bit, and then we'll dive into discussion. And I'll give you some background on the policies and the regulations for non-conforming piers. I do want to note quickly that Greg Lean, attorney and representative for Mr. Thompson, who is the property owner with the appeal, is here today and will be giving a brief presentation after I have concluded. Next slide, please. So very quickly, again, the catalyst for bringing this issue to you all today is the Thompson appeal. TRPA denied a project for a proposed expansion to an existing single-use pier. And that existing pier had a number of non-conforming elements, meaning that the design was inconsistent with our current standards. The applicant subsequently denied the appeal. The appeal was heard by both the legal committee and the governing board, and the appeal was actually continued. The board gave direction back to staff to possibly reconvene the Shoreline Steering Committee to further deliberate the issue of non-conforming piers. Rather than reconvene the entirety of the committee that was formed more than 8 years ago, the direction to staff was eventually to engage certain relevant stakeholders on the issue and then bring it to the regional planning committee to kind of workshop that out. Next slide, please. And I think this will give a really quick idea of what we're talking about today. The structure on the left-hand side is the existing pier. The structure or the simulation on the right is the proposed structure. And this is the project that was subject of the appeal. So the proposal was to remove the rock cribbing, reconstruct it with open piling, add additional length, and add a boat lift. Those are the two elements that were considered an expansion under our code. They proposed to retain width that would be in addition to our standard, and also 2 catwalks, whereas our standards would only allow 1. So those 2 elements, the non-conforming width and the 2 catwalks, are what led us to deny the project. Next slide, please. So again, Brandy McMahon and Executive Director Reagan both spoke about the 2018 shoreline plan earlier today. I won't repeat too much of what was presented, but just from my own experience with it, it was not easy. It was a long, very elaborate process to get us to the adoption of the plan. And you know, we have been implementing that plan now for 6.5 years. And over that time, we've learned quite a bit about how the code works, how the policies work. And you can see kind of the breadth of outreach and fact finding and negotiations that occurred up on the screen. Next slide, please. There are a few elements to the shoreline plan that are pertinent to our discussion today that I do want to highlight. The shoreline plan allows but limits new pier development to 128 piers. So this is roughly 12 piers every other year. So getting a new pier is limited opportunities for that. At the time of the shoreline plan adoption, there were approximately 700 existing piers on the lake. A portion of those are non-conforming, either because they have rock cribs, or because they have boat houses, or they're too wide or too long. There's a number of things that could make them non-conforming. The plan also allowed for modifications to existing piers if incremental environmental gains are achieved. And the plan also requires bringing into conformance all non-conforming elements of an existing pier if an expansion is desired. And there is a limited exception to that, which I will touch on. Next slide, please. So because it can be kind of hard to understand visualize what a non-conforming pier looks like, and there are varying degrees of non-conformance, we have a couple of examples up here. So this is an existing pier. You can see where the angle juts out at the pier head. That creates a pier head that's wider than what would otherwise be allowed. It's a pretty minor nonconformity, but it's a nonconformity nonetheless. So I would say this is kind of on the, on one side of the spectrum. Next slide, please. So here we see kind of a combo open piling rock crib pier. The rock cribbing is the non-conforming element, as well as the L shape at the pier head. So you see that the rock cribbing can create quite a bit of visual mass that you see from the lake. It can impede the flow of water with wave action, and also has the potential to create AIS habitat. So you can see the open piling piece closer to shore. That is an example of what we want to see, but this pier still would be considered non-conforming. Next slide. Again, a rock crib pier. The structure on the top is not a boathouse, but it is what we would call a superstructure. So that is another non-conforming element, as cool as people might think they are. Next slide, and I'll breeze through these next ones pretty quickly. Again, this is a superstructure with a rock crib pier. And on the next slide, Catherine. So this shows open piling piers with superstructures. There are several elements that likely contribute to nonconformance here, but primarily being the boathouse or the superstructure. And again, this is the Thompson Pier, the subject of the appeal. And one more visual slide here. This just gives a good aerial perspective, the pier on the left and the pier on the right. both have non-conforming elements to them. And you can just see from what it looks like as you're looking down on that. Next slide, please. All right, so just a major shift that I want to highlight. There was a shift in how non-conforming piers were treated with the adoption of the 2018 shoreline plan. So under the old code, expansions of non-conforming piers were allowed if certain findings could be made. And those findings were related to navigation, littoral processes, shoreline erosion, and then there had to be an environmental benefit. Under the current code, expansions are only allowed when there is an existing boathouse and the expansion serves to improve the scenic impact of the boathouse. So it's very limited. It's almost non-existent. So in most cases, all non-conforming elements must come into conformance for an expansion to occur. Next slide, please. And as I stated, we've learned a lot through the implementation of our code. We've learned what works well and what isn't working so well. We'll just call them pros and cons. We'll start with the pros. The code today gives both applicants and staff really clear parameters for how to treat non-conforming piers. So we can apply the code consistently and predictably for potential applicants. If an applicant wants an expansion badly enough, if they want to get some extra length or if they want to get a boat lift and they can't do that without coming into conformance, well, if they want it and they can come into conformance, we get assurance that all of our development standards are going to be met. And so any negotiation or subjectivity is eliminated. But what's not working well on the flip side, the incentives that we thought were in place to remove some of the most obvious non-conforming elements are perceived to be fairly weak. This has been communicated to us by applicants and also is supported through the types of applications for pier expansions or modifications that we receive. So if an applicant has a rock crib pier today, they're enjoying some benefits that they otherwise would not get and may not be willing to undergo the cost to tear that rock crib out and put in an open piling pier, even if they get some additional length, because they would rather have the benefits that they're getting with that rock crib pier. I'm not saying that's the case in every situation, but that is some of what we're seeing. So if we leave the code as it is, it could be that the result is that rock crib piers remain in place. Next slide. The goals for today's discussion are pretty simple. We want to solicit feedback from committee members and the public on the existing regulations surrounding non-conforming piers and explore whether there are incentives to convert rock crib piers to open piling piers. Next slide. The options on this screen are just intended to serve as conversation starters. They are not recommendations, and they generally represent potentially feasible options for how to treat this conundrum of non-conforming piers. Option 1, no change. Keep the code as it is. Option 2, explore limited allowances. For example, look at whether safety features such as a railing or a ladder to get out of the water should be considered allowable, under the expansion definition. And then option 3, explore the limited allowances for expansions to non-conforming, specifically rock crib piers, and convert them to open piling. This could look like a variety of different ways to do this. And I do want to recognize that there are other non-conforming elements that I'm not highlighting in this conversation, but that do exist. And that the intent is to just put some potential guardrails around the conversation, but it certainly isn't intended to limit or stifle any other options that may come up. Thank you. As the committee explores this topic, some considerations to just keep in mind. Anything different than the status quo will require additional stakeholder vetting, time and resources, and also potential environmental review. So we recognize all of those things. And it is important to consider any options and staying within the confines of the shoreline EIS. And lastly, the guiding principle should be environmental improvement. And using, again, rock crib piers as an example, allowing them to be open piling will likely result in some environmental benefits that we would like to see and could be consistent with the shoreline EIS, like reducing the scenic impact, opening up to free water flows for improved littoral processes and shoreline quality. And also decreasing AIS habitat. So I think just keeping these environmental improvements as the guideposts for the discussion would be is my recommendation. Other than that, I have no recommendations. So with that, I'm going to conclude and turn it over to Greg Lean for a brief presentation.
Great, thank you, Tiffany.
Am I on? All right. Good afternoon, members of the committee, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about this and the process too. I thought that was much improved over where we had left it last time, and allow governing board direct input here. Very much appreciate the opportunity. Let me introduce our team. We have Abby Edwards here from Tahoe Land Planning, and my client, Paul Thompson. He and his family are the ones who have this very pier that we're talking about. I appreciate the way you've teed this up, Tiffany, and even the way the representative of the league started talking about it. I mean, we do need to know, is this something that we have a compelling need to look at? And we'll just let you be the judge as you take in all of the elements here. I think you're going to see that when we look at it from a threshold to threshold to threshold basis, everything improves with this project. And it's not really a physical expansion. Actually, it's reduction, as you'll see as we go through all of the parameters. And how we define those things, I'll leave that for another day. We're not going to talk about any of that. So this, to the best of our knowledge, is the largest simple rock crib structure on the entire lake. It's massive. This is not quite at total low water, but close. And you can see how massive it is. Next slide, please. So as you can see, extending out from the top image, it is a complete wall. We're converting it, but we are decreasing the width of the pier and decreasing the pier head width by 4 feet. So it's a foot narrower, 4 feet narrower at the pier head. That's the most visible part of it. And just trading things around, everything gets less visible, not more. And we also have an improvement to public access, of course, building stairs to allow the public to go along the shoreline. Next slide. Another environmental benefit is all of these rock crib piers need repair from time to time. As you can see, it's quite a process to get out there and repair these things. That alone unavoidably results in interruption to fish habitat and to the lake bottom. Next slide. So in terms of fish habitat, this is the official fish habitat map. This isn't anything that we've monkeyed with. And when you go along the shoreline and look for areas in the blue, though, blue is areas where we've had a very negative impact on fish habitat. And when you go along the shoreline, you hardly ever see this. And this pier, the one with the blue around it, that's the Thompson Pier, it creates blockage. As most of you know, there's this concept of littoral drift. When the materials move up and down the shoreline, it tends to scour out on the side with the wave action and then build up on the other side. You can see that currently that's really scouring out on the north side and building up dramatically on the right. Removing that completely restores normal littoral drift and results in a major impact that's totally positive to fish habitat. Next slide. So this slide sort of illustrates it once again. You can see on the left side where it's scouring, right side where it's accreting more material. One of the interesting things about this, you'll see in the next slide. Let's get to the next slide. Oh, you've already shown this one. By the way, the simulation on the right is not to scale. That it looks like it's about the same size, but again, it's going to be reduced in overall size. Next slide. So this is one that deserves a little commentary. So anyone who's been on Tahoe for a number of years, and I would count myself among them, knows that we get some whopper doozy storms from time to time. It's inevitable you're going to happen. The angle that we're looking at right now is about exactly the angle of the prevailing winds in a major storm event. So when those winds build up waves, and any engineer can do that calculation, they'll be able to say, okay, here's the length of the fetch, here's the velocity of the wind, and we're going to get a calculated wave height. And what we have every decade or 2 decades are major events where you can get 8 feet and above waves coming in and impacting these areas. So imagine waves coming into that area right there in that corner. That is a solid rock crib. And then at the end, right at the shoreline, it's solid concrete. That's going to be totally reflective, as is the rock wall to the right. What that invites, and I've personally seen this happen, is you get shoreline erosion. I've seen it so bad on the West Shore. I've represented every major marina and over the years, and I can tell you it happens on a regular basis. If you get a high pool combined by that kind of a wave event, you're going to have scouring there that's going to undermine that wall. That wall is very likely to fail, and you're going to get fresh soil, nutrient-rich soil, going straight into Tahoe. I've seen it erode so quickly that it's like 2 or 3 feet of shoreline going into Lake Tahoe in an hour. It's an environmental disaster just waiting to happen. And this can happen from both sides. In this particular area of the shoreline, the winds can come from both directions and do the same kind of phenomena. Next slide. So one thing that we undertook as part of this process, and by the way, we've been at this since 2019, at a time when doing the modification that we were talking about, going from rock crib to open piling, that was generally considered routine. We did an inventory to see how many structures could actually take advantage of this. A very narrow exception for relatively simple structures like this. And we can find a number of them that would also be able to take advantage of this and multiply the effect. It's not just about the Thompson Pier. It's about opening up an opportunity for a select group where you're going to see additional positive impacts. So next slide, please. In terms of process, my client has spent over $100,000 on the pier design, planning, agency permitting, and appeal process. In the prior slide, if we could go back to that just for 1 second, we had hired Brent Tramps, who's a recognized scenic expert, who's been on your advisory committees over the years and is probably, he's Harvard graduated, uber expert in this area. And he really knows the scenic realm, and you're going to see a scenic impact that is so positive, being able to look through that as opposed to just seeing a wall. I wish we had a simulation we could show you, but you can imagine, as opposed to looking at that wall and then being able to see something that you get that view of the shoreline uninterrupted. My client paid for that study, and we're really trying to work with you and your staff. All the piers around the lake were included in that. So we're quite confident that should the staff decide, based upon your direction, to go start looking at ways to draft language to accomplish what we want to do, that's going to be able to be done. And we want to continue to support that effort in any way we can. I think I'm just coming up on 10 minutes now, so I think I'll conclude there, unless anyone from the committee has any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for relating to his proposal or his
I
presentation?
do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Greg, refresh my memory. Does the applicant have buoys?
He has two buoys, one of which he's going to convert to a boat
okay,
lift.
that was my question, to a
Right.
boat lift.
And I want to remind everyone that we're not
It's not
here to
project
talk about this particular project. Yeah, I guess before we start, we're just looking to see whether there are any merits, or if we have the appetite to explore incentives through shore zone code amendments or specific changes to convert these piers. We're not talking about this specific project, and that everything that we're talking about, the assumption is, will be within our existing EIS, so we don't have to undertake a new one of those. So
That's
in our
true.
discussions.
The reason I asked the question was to clarify that fact, and obviously this project was the catalyst for our current conversation. So
Yeah, and unless there's something else, I mean, this is going to be a water quality improvement, a scenic quality improvement. It's going to be a fish habitat improvement. Every one of the thresholds that we can think of, it's approvals across the board, and actually a reduction in the size of the structure. Just to conclude, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. All right. So with that, and I've tried to give you kind of the guardrails for this discussion. And that's basically what we're going to talk about if we decide to go with one of those options. What guardrails possibly we can put on staff and allow them to work with other partners to consider. So any discussion? Shelley?
first of all, I want to thank staff for bringing this forward. We had a pretty robust conversation on September 20th of 2023. I have the staff report here at my fingertips. You know, I'm a big proponent of the old saying that, you know, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And if we can obtain some environmental benefit from a project that, you know, brings something into greater conformity, I think it's worth considering. And I'm assuming these options are not mutually exclusive, right? That you suggested. I mean, like safety improvements.
Correct.
To me, that's a no-brainer.
Yep.
You know, if you're increasing safety. Pier deck height, this is under option number 2. I'm assuming that's an increase in height, not a decrease in height. Mass, you know, I'm assuming that we can, I guess, Tiffany, this is a question for you and maybe Marcia as well, that we could create a matrix, because I know staff is concerned, and rightfully so, of making a decision that would be viewed as arbitrary. And so obviously it's the agency's responsibility to make sure that, you know, you're given as much explicit direction as possible. And as Vince points out, it needs to be within the sidebars of the existing EIS. So having said that, I guess I'm looking to staff. I mean, we can carve out an exception for rock crib piers, which is contained under option 3. However, that only, in this case, that would only, let's see, in exchange for an increase in length up to the applicable development standards or the addition of a boat lift within the mooring limits set forth in the code. If it can be demonstrated that the visible mass would not be substantially enhanced, is there a reason why you couldn't include a boat lift and additional length?
I think that those specific development standards, we can work those out. In other words, if you're achieving so much environmental gain, maybe that is decrease in visible mass, then, the additional utility that you gain by, an extra 20 feet of length and an additional boat lift, if you can do that and still show a reduction in visible mass, potentially that's, the kind of menu approach that we can move forward with. We don't have all of those options laid out for you today.
Sure.
It's more about getting to see if there's appetite for us to explore that. But I think that we could lay out some sort of a menu approach for how, so that staff isn't having to make judgment calls.
Okay, and I appreciate that. And that would certainly be my recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Anyone else? James?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, terrible that I had buttons. I appreciate that type of approach. I think that we need to do something to further incentivize individual to help bring non-compliance peers into compliance. And especially in the aspect, as we sit here and just had such an extensive discussion of aquatic invasive species, then we're going to follow it up and say that, but we don't want to necessarily give more people a reason to go from a rock crib to an open piling, which actually, gets to the heart of the aquatic invasive species by not creating more stagnant water and allowing attaching areas for those invasive species. I think it'd be a good thing to look at. Obviously, the safety features, need to be within there, and there you should be the number one priority because human life is. From there we look at option 3, but even the aspect of, what are the thoughts of maybe looking at the square footage of the existing dock. And so you decide you got a 10-foot dock, maybe you go ahead and make it a 9, thus taking down your overall square footage, but you move it a little bit and then you have a boat lift, you expand your boat lift because maybe the old boat you had was nothing more than a canoe and maybe the new boat you have has a motor. So it's a little bit wider and you're looking to have that type of a compromise. And I'd have no problem having that discussion, looking at it, because again, the square footage would stay the same. It's just the same issue we have with buildings within Tahoe, right? It's all about the footprint. So those are just my thoughts.
Great. Any other comments? Nope.
Vince?
Anyone online?
Yeah, Vince, it's Cindy
Okay.
Gustafson. I agree with the comments about how do we incentivize improvements for our environment? Because, in our lifetimes, we might not get all these addressed. And so how can we help make this safer and better? And I'm sorry, I can't see all the exhibits while I'm driving, and that's a good thing for all of you that I'm not trying to look at those. But I want to make sure that, adaptive management to me is what we need to be about, and we do need to find carrots to incentivize the improvements we want to see with existing development of all kinds, not just related to piers. So I concur with James's comments and Shelley's. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from committee members? I guess I'd like to say, I think all of our policies should not be viewed as totally sacred, and we should be free to go back and make improvements where needed. And I actually appreciate that we're doing that in this case. And also that we do need incentives. We did that a lot in our phase 2 of housing. We have non-conforming properties, and no one can afford to redo them unless we give them some incentives of extra density, height, and reduced parking as an example. It takes those. We wish we had the money to do everything, and we just sadly don't. No one seems ever to. So it sounds like, maybe to kind of paraphrase, I think it sounds like the committee has the will and the appetite to look at opening this up for rock crib piers for that small category. So limiting it to that, staying within the EIS, making sure that we have environmental gain. I know Gavin discussed that, how much gain really is there. And I know from talking with him previously that they're concerned about this idea of trading one bucket for another, making something worse to make something better. So I think we really have to look at that. And I know Shelley mentioned that we want to make sure that when it comes to staff, it's not arbitrary, that it's kind of laid out in a way that I guess there are some choices or parameters. Is that what you said? Okay. So that everyone gets kind of treated the same potentially, or, formulaically as much as that's possible. And yeah, that I guess, we stay within the other limitations of our existing code. So they could potentially get more length or area, but not above what is allowed in the code for a new pier or something like that. Does that sound like it captures kind of what everyone was looking at? That makes sense? Any questions? Anything I missed?
I just want to say this it's John Hester. I just want to say this on the record, so we are very clear as we try to craft code or something like that, but you're open to changing it for rock crib piers. You want to stay in the existing EIS scope. One environmental gain, safety. We can look at boat lift and length if it shows a reduction in visible mass. Reduce the potential for AIS, and look at if there's a possibility for a trade-off in square feet. You get the same aggregate, but maybe you could make it shorter and add a boat lift or something like that. So those are the things I wrote down that I heard, and I think, did I miss any?
I think that sounds good, John, but Mr. Chair, we are getting a request for an additional public comment, if we might entertain that.
Okay, is that procedurally we're all right to do that?
I think it's fine. It's at your election. We will have a public interest period or public interest comment before we adjourn. But if you would like to take that now, help facilitate the discussion, I think that's fine.
Sure, I think so. Oh, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. James Summer. Maybe we could clarify with the person online that they actually are trying to comment on this particular subject.
I'm assuming, but yeah, you're right.
It's actually someone here in the room. I just don't think she understood that the comment came before the item.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we changed our public comment period around recently. So we take public comments at the beginning on items and then at the end on general. So yeah, feel free.
I'm so
Thank you.
sorry.
No worries at
I've
all.
only been around 40 years. I just didn't get that memo. It's one way to silence me. I'm Jan Briscoe, and I'm with the Tahoe Lakefront Owners Association and a consultant for Shore Zone projects. And thank you very much for entertaining just a few minutes here. But the concept that we're talking about, I was on the original committee, and we never thought that something as simple as exchanging a mooring buoy for a boat lift would require that you kind of come in and rip the whole pier out and change the cribbing and all these new design standards, which actually ratcheted down what a conforming pier is, even from the last 30 years. So I think it's very important that we have an opportunity to look at these accessory structures. You've seen a couple appeals come through to you over the years through legal committee. And it was always the intention really to go back and revisit some of those things. And we're excited to have that opportunity. We wouldn't
I think, like to see it. There are, I think, more than just this appeal issue with the cribbing. I think we have a lot of opportunity to make things better, to really improve the environment scenically and littoral drift, fisheries, all of the thresholds that we hold so dear. And especially with the evolving issues such as AIS and that kind of thing. But I think your attention to refining and improving the shoreline regulations for both the environment, for stewardship, and most importantly for safety. I just have to say, you should actually be requiring people put boat lifts on instead of mooring buoys, because especially these last few storms when we've seen boats sinking on mooring buoys, it's the threat of mixing oil and gas in the lake. It's ridiculous that we should be having these things happen. A boat lift gets the boat up and out of the water. You don't have the bilge pump coming on. They have to make all the environmental findings. They have to make the scenic improvements, not just for the boat lift, but in the upland as well, which is what you see more of. So I really hope you'll take this opportunity to let staff come back with sort of this menu idea, and the ones that make sense. I think this is one of them. Let's try to do that. In fact, staff showed you a picture of one of the projects that could not meet the, was not conforming, and it was not conforming because of the depth of the water. It was off of Ganawabi and it's a very steep drop off. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater on these things. Let's really try to make this process work well. And I like the comment by Governing Board Member Gustafson that we really need to make this adaptive. And I think we can do that. And we're ready to roll up our sleeves with staff. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Any other public comments? I guess we need to probably reach out, right? Since
I think that's fair if you open it up, that there's anyone else online.
anyone online? I don't see anyone.
Mr. Chair, there are no hands raised online to comment.
And
Okay.
we'll still do our public comment at the
At
very
the
end.
end of the, yeah. Okay, so then we'll close public comment. Is there any other discussion from committee members? Okay, so we have kind of the guidelines that we've.
Yeah, I mean, I
inherited. Is that?
I also, I could offer a draft motion too, to be read in. I think that it covers it. I don't know. Yeah, it is an action item. Yeah, just to give, I think we could do it with a motion and just take what we've heard, or I mean, we could do it with just what we've heard, or you could read a motion. I had written a motion to direct staff to further examine potential code amendments related to incentives for reducing non-conforming pier structures, including the potential to approve limited expansions where there are net environmental benefits, considering the ideas and discussion points raised at today's meeting.
I think we need to constrain it just to rock crib piers.
Okay.
So just to make it really clear, we're talking about one very narrow set in this.
Okay.
Are you guys fine with that motion? And then you have some direction that we've given and John repeated.
Those 7 items I listed,
Yep.
which one of was the rock crib is.
I added rock crib in there, but it just kind of fits. I've referenced the ideas and discussion points today, so everything we've covered with John would be included, or that John rattled off there.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah, I just, I guess my concern is from staff's perspective. I mean, I think limiting it, this is kind of a test case. That's how I view it. Limiting it to the reviewing of rock crib piers and using that as a way of determining, how we should move forward with potentially in other, piers that aren't rock crib piers, but there are sufficient trade-offs with net environmental benefits. I don't want to give, I don't want to leave this too open-ended. I would prefer to kind of circumscribe it a little bit and confine it to rock piers for the time being and see how it works out, and what sort of a net environmental gain we receive from that. And then maybe at some future date, consider expanding it.
We appreciate setting a parameter on it. Otherwise, we're not careful, we'll open up the whole shoreline.
That's my concern. That's my concern.
James had a comment or question.
I actually, a little bit opposite of that, James Settlemyer. I think we should be looking at the concept of reducing environmental impact. If we're talking about the discussion, it is about the interaction of surface area of the lake, not the word rock cribs. What's the next technology? And it just kind of bugs me that we're almost shoehorning it into the subject of just having getting away from rock crib. There might be some other technology. Does that still allow us the flexibility to entertain different technologies to come up, or something else, maybe somebody figures out a magnetic lift thing? Are we still accepting that ability, or is this limit us to only the other one?
I think that's part of the direction that we are seeking. If you keep it open-ended, staff can go back, and we've heard the discussion. So I mean, if we remove rock crib pier from a limitation today, it doesn't mean we won't come back and be limited to that. If that's what we're going to take it back, work through it at the staff level. If you keep it open-ended, it gives us a little bit more, we're hearing that would give us a little bit more of a broader lens, potentially look at other types of more significant non-conforming elements that might have negative environmental effects.
Well, my only concern though, Graham, is I don't want everyone with a non-conforming pier to be coming to TRPA with an application for modifying the structures. I'm trying to contain it a little bit for the sake of
Understood.
staff. Yeah.
Yeah, understood. And
Yeah.
that's something that you can do today, and you can limit it to rock crib piers.
That's what I'm
That's
suggesting.
what, yeah.
Yeah, I would feel more comfortable with that as well, limited it to a small subset, see how it goes. I'm sure this is not gonna be controversy free and easy in itself, but if we focus, maybe we can get somewhere, I think, quickly, hopefully.
So if I might just reiterate so that I have an understanding, since it will probably be me that's working on this. Yeah. So using rock crib piers as kind of a test case to see how this menu approach plays out, and how we can fine tune it to get rid of any ambiguity or potential for negotiating back and forth with applicants. So I think I appreciate that. And I also understand Graham's sentiment, like, if you open it up, then we have the discretion to narrow it down to rock crib piers if that's the most obvious, I guess, test case to bring forward. So I guess my comment would be that, I could go either way. And I appreciate both either direction, but it sounds like we're limiting it today to rock crib piers. So appreciate the discussion.
Is that I feel like that was the general consensus of the.
As the old saying goes, nothing is written in stone, in this case, rock cribbing.
Well, if the sixth criteria besides rock crib, we run across magnetic piers that would, or something like that, we'll take the initiative to put it, we'll bring it back.
Yeah. All right. So it sounds like we have a motion. Do you want to reread it?
Well, I'd like to hand you the motion, and you guys
Okay.
can just go ahead and.
Would you like to
Maybe the
make it?
one on the bottom is just, if you can read my stretch.
And you want to add, we'll do this, you want to kind of team tag here? Sure, go ahead.
The six issues that I believe your upcoming motion would refer to are, besides that it's rock crib, is that it fits within the existing EIS scope. There's environmental gain, there's a safety gain. The boat lift and length can be changed if we show a reduction in visible mass. We reduce potential for AIS, and we can trade off square feet for other apparatus like boat lifts as long as we keep the same aggregate square footage.
Okay, thank you. With that said, I move to direct staff to further examine potential code amendments related to incentives for reducing non-conforming rock crib pier structures, including the potential to approve limited expansions of rock crib piers where there are net environmental, and I don't think that I amend that. Sorry, I'm reading what you wrote. To approve limited expansions of docks where there are net environmental benefits, existing rock crib piers to be eliminated where there are net environmental benefits, considering the ideas and discussion points raised at today's committee meeting. Is that adequate? Okay.
All right, Maria,
Ms. Aldine,
Yes.
Ms. Gustafson,
Yes.
Mr. Keycapper, Ms. Loomer,
Yes.
Mr. Settlemyre,
Yes.
Mr. Henigman,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, motion passes.
Great, thank you. All right, so that brings us, and thank you guys for your work on this. Thank you, Tiffany. And thank you in advance for your work on this. I know you're going to be working with a lot of stakeholders to make sure that the policy is amenable to everyone and does result in the best results for the lake and the community. So thank you. All right, upcoming topics. That's agenda item number 5. As a reminder to the public, since this item is informational only, members of public are welcome to comment at the final public comment item. John, can you give us the
Sure,
upcoming
do this
items?
very quickly. Washoe County's Tahoe area plan will be coming later this year. As we mentioned during the full board meeting, Dan Segan and I will try to bring by the end of the year something on the mobility mitigation fee. Along with that, a regional plan amendment to put the regional vision map that we had at the board retreat in. We're working on defining those urban and rural areas with the local governments so that we can use that for the mobility mitigation fee. The city of South Lake Tahoe has an area plan, Midtown area plan coming up. El Dorado has called the Tahoe El Dorado plan or the TED plan coming up. We have, in response to Nevada law on ADUs, we're going to bring forth an amendment to remove the 1 acre limitation on the Nevada side. But we want to take that directly to the governing board and avoid having both a committee meeting and a governing board meeting, because that's a pretty straightforward amendment. So that's what I have on the horizon today.
Great, thank you. Any committee member comments on that? Nope. Okay, so public comments. Okay. So we're on agenda item number 6, committee member comments. Any comments? I'm going to make a quick one. Advocating for members of the public who are concerned or interested in our phase 3 housing work. The Tahoe Living Public Workshop is being held tonight in the North Shore, and you can find information on that on the calendar on the homepage of TRPA's website. It is at 128 Market Street and State Line from 5 to 8 tonight. There was one last night as well. And remind members of the public that this is a 3-year process. There are a lot of opportunities to get involved. The house is being built, and if you come at the end and want to rearrange the rooms, we're beyond that. So you can maybe change the roof color, but you know, the sausage is being made right now, and I hope everyone will get involved early and make their opinions known.
Mr. Chairman, it's not 128 Market Street. Just wanted to make that clear. That's here.
Oh,
So
I'm
just so
sorry.
nobody shows up here and we're not here.
Where is the,
It's on the North Shore.
it says TRPA 128. Well, then maybe we need to fix that on the website, because that's the venue that is shown. I was thinking that seems weird, but I thought it was the other state line up there. Do you know where what the address is?
Looking it up right now.
It's at the Parasol Tahoe Community Foundation in Incline Village.
Tahoe Community Foundation in Incline Village.
Formerly Parasol. I don't know. It's formerly known as Parasol.
Parasol. Okay.
It's 948 Incline Way, Incline Village.
Okay. I just read that without even thinking it was our address. Sorry about that. But yeah, we probably should change that on there very quickly. But that's it. I hope that people can show up. So now our final matter of business is general public comment, general public interest comment period. Any member of the public wishing to address the Regional Planning Committee on any item listed or not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Individuals or groups who have already commented on items listed on the agenda are not permitted to comment on the same topic. The Regional Planning Committee can only deliberate or act on items listed on the posted agenda. To ensure proper public notice, committee members typically won't respond to comments on unlisted topics accept or correct factual errors, ask staff for clarification, or request that a topic be placed on a future agenda. Finally, comments must relate to matters within the jurisdiction of this agency. If any member of the public wishes to speak at this time, please raise your hand either now in person or by clicking the raise hand item at the bottom of your screen, your Zoom screen, or by dialing *9 on your phone, and you will be called on and unmuted by a TRPA staff member. There is no one in this room, so is there anyone online? What's that? Well, yeah, sorry. No members of the public. I don't see anyone online.
Mr. Chair, there are no hands online to comment.
All right, then we will close public comment period. And that brings us to our final agenda item, which is a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say here.
Yeah.
James.
James is opposed, but the motion still passes. All right, thank you, everyone.